Hello everybody, it's Faith. Today it is super hot here in Pennsylvania. It is like 89 degrees. Might as well say 90 if you know what I mean. Feels like it. Um, I just gosh, what did I want to talk about? There's so many things I want to talk about, and it's weird because every time I get on, I'll be like, okay, like what do I talk about? And it's like I don't remember. Um, but one thing I really wanted to talk about was God. So I know I've said in the video before this or the one before that or something that God goes before us. And I just want to talk in a little bit of detail about that. Yeah. So God goes before us, and it's not just saying he's with us and in front of us, he is in front of us. So it kind of makes you have a whole shift of perspective, because if you think about it, if God is fighting your battles and all this stuff, that's probably where the word, whereas Jesus said, answer me, where did I go wrong? And it's like, I think sometimes we just don't see why God's doing this or that, but you've got to remember that God knows you, and he actually knows you better than you know yourself, which is kind of scary, but he does. And then one day, God will okay, I'll give you an example. So today I'm going to see my therapist. I don't have a list, but I don't know why I just did that. I'm going to see my therapist later, and by the way, guys, I roll this world. But anyway, um, I'm going to see my therapist later, and I was wondering something to do with like, what should I do when I get home before I see my therapist? And this girl was on the radio, on my phone, on the aux cord, and she said something about therapy. And it just, in me, that made me think that I should, take a nap and then go to therapy or something. Like, it just made sense in my mind about what God was telling me. And it made me think that if he knows ahead of what I'm going to say, then he knows what I'm going to say. Like, he's so for us. And, I think that's just what I really want to talk about today is like, God is so for us. And another thing you got to remember is, even though you can't see God and you're not in heaven and God is looking at you and his face and everything, God is here. God is here. He is so here. He, he loves you, and that's not just something to take lightly. Like, God is love. He loves you. So when God went through his whole passion, he, loved you, and what nailed him to the cross was love. Like, that's what kept him there. I could go on and on talking about the passion. There's so many things I've found out recently that are just horrific. Like, when Jesus got crowned with thorns, it was like getting electrocuted but still staying alive, and because the thorns were so deep into his brain. And so he had to walk scourged like that, as mockery, to the cross, to the place where he's getting crucified. Like, what? And he dragged this huge cross. And they say the cross actually weighed a ton because it had the sins of the world on it. All of the sins of the world that everyone will ever commit. So he had this cross on his shoulders, and holding something like that, I doubt he dragged it because he wanted to show how much he loved us. Love God. And it probably weighed a ton, like I said, and he probably just was like, imagine Jesus walking and then he trips. As God, he trips as God, even though he didn't have to trip, but he's a human that's under this pressure of the crown of thorns. And he falls to the ground, and the thorns go deeper in his head. And he's just, I don't know what you're thinking, but if that was me, I'd be like, forget this. Forget these people. I'm done. I am the king of the world. You all die. I'm out of here. You know what I mean? I'm going back to heaven. But he didn't. And I'm sure that thought came across his mind because Satan was tempting him. And imagine being crushed under this cross. Imagine the soldiers whipping you to the point where you're just so close to giving up. But you get up and you go forward. that puts a lot of things in perspective. Like some days I don't want to walk around our lake. I just don't have the urge to. And it's like, if Jesus can do that, I can do anything. And it is true in the Bible. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And we have to remember that, because sometimes we'll feel like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do. I can't get it done, or I can't do this. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So let's remember that. I feel like the Passion was not an easy thing. To be ridiculed and to be mocked when you are actually God, it's just horrible. And Jesus in the crown of thorns, he kept the crown of thorns on his head for the entire road to Calvary until he died on the cross. And I just feel like that is horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And, but then we have to remember that Jesus resurrected, and with his resurrection, he brought so much joy. It's the birthday, or not the birthday, the biggest feast in the church, because he said, even though death killed him, he is the author of life, and he showed that. Hallelujah. So today I urge you to